There is a huge difference of attractiveness between a man in a t-shirt and jeans and a man wearing a suit. But there is an even bigger difference between a man in a suit and a man in an amazing suit. You may have noticed that some men look great while wearing a suit. They turn heads, they look confident, while others look like McLovin. The difference is huge, but the solution is very simple. About 10 years ago, I wanted to get my first suit for the prom. I was in the 8th grade and I wanted to impress everyone by looking like James Bond. So I went to Massimo Dutti with my dad and I told him I want a black suit, to which he responded no. You should never get a black suit, especially as your first one. Because there's only 2 reasons why someone should wear a black suit. 1, if they're going to a funeral. And 2, if they're a security guard. I'm very grateful that he did not let me get that black suit and instead I went for a dark gray one. But color is only one aspect, and today we are going to discuss many other aspects that you should consider when buying your first suit. Let's start with a common false belief. You might think that the first suit you should ever get should be black. After all, even Steve Harvey said it. Never go for black for your first suit. Better options include gray, dark gray, navy, or even brown, but never black. And since a lot of men go for navy with their first suit, I would recommend you to go for gray or dark gray, depending on your preference. And now you might be wondering, what about black tie events? You should not wear a black suit either way, because at black tie events, you are expected to dress in black tie attire. That means a tuxedo or a dinner jacket. In no way a normal black suit. Now let's go over the fabrics that you should be wearing. Wool is by far the most popular suit fabric. And it's also the most versatile, meaning you can also wear it in the summer, but you can wear it even in the winter. Next up we have cotton, which is great for summers, not so great for winters. It's also more casual than wool. Linen is just as casual as cotton, but I would say even a better option for summer days, because it's very breathable. You will not sweat as much when wearing a linen suit. Velvet is something I personally would not wear if you're considering a full bodysuit. If you're only considering dinner jacket, then that's a whole other story. Seersucker is another option that you might have for summer days. And I'm personally not a big fan of the material. I don't like how it looks necessarily, but a lot of men love seersucker. So if you're into summery fabrics, that's definitely another option. Tweed and flannel are great for autumn and winter. So if you're looking for a suit that you want to buy for the colder seasons, I would really go for flannel. Tweed is a bit more on the casual side. Well, flannel is as well if you're comparing it to wool, for example, but tweed is very casual. Also, if you want to look like a Peaky Blinder, go for flannel. It's the next suit on my list that I want to get. There are 3 different types of suits that you should be considering. The first is a 2-piece. This is by far the most common one. You've probably seen them all around. You also have a 3-piece, which is a bit more formal than a 2-piece suit, but not by that much. You also have a double-breasted suit. Now, these are a lot more rare these days. I would say not a lot of men wear double-breasted suits. Right now, I am wearing a double-breasted suit. And it's definitely a power move. It doesn't look great on everyone, but if it looks great on you and if you can pull it off confidently, I would say it's a great investment. Now let's go over the details when it comes to the jacket. Starting off with the bigger details, let's talk about the buttons. When it comes to single-breasted suits, you can either go with 1, 2, or 3 buttons. 1 button should only be for black tie. 2 buttons is the most popular form and the one I would be recommending you to go for. 3 buttons are a bit more vintage, they're not as popular nowadays, but they are still a viable option. You could also go for a 3-roll 2 button suit, which basically means that only the first 2 buttons should be taken into consideration. Meanwhile, the third one, the higher one, is a bit hidden by the lapel. That one should never be buttoned. Moving on to the back. Here we can either go for a ventless jacket, 1 vent, or double vented. Most suits, especially in Europe, are double vented. In America, I think single vented are a bit more popular, but I'm not quite sure. I would recommend you to go for a double vented suit. They are the most flexible and they look the best in my personal opinion. You can also go for a single vented jacket, but never go for a no vent jacket if you're not buying a dinner jacket. If you're going for black tie, then no vented is probably your best option. When it comes to pockets, you have 4 main options. Going by most casual to most formal, we have patch pockets, we have flap pockets, we have angled pockets, and then the most formal option, we have jetted or besom pockets. You might have also seen the ticket pockets. Those are more popular in the past because men would often store their train tickets in that pocket, but they're not as popular nowadays, and that pocket is mostly used for decoration. If you're going for a sports coat, I would recommend you go for either patch or flap pockets. If you're going for a suit, especially if it's a more formal suit, a business suit, I would go for either flap or jetted pockets. The lapel width is extremely important. If you're going too short, you will look like you're straight out of the 60s. If you're going too long, you will look comical. A good lapel size is about 3 to 3.5 inch. That's about, I think, 8 to 9 centimeters. Of course, if you're wearing peak lapels, the lapel should also be a bit wider. If you're wearing a double-breasted suit, then again it should be a bit on the wider side. I would recommend going for rather wider lapels than slimmer ones. And the lapel type is also something that should be discussed. There's 3 lapel types that you should know. The notch lapel, which is the least formal, the peak lapel, which is more formal, and then the shawl collar, which should only be found on dinner jackets and on tuxedo jackets. My favorite choice is to go for peak lapels. They're much more masculine and they're kind of a power play. Harvey Specter from the TV show Suits wears almost exclusively peak lapels. The gorge is this line right here where the collar meets the lapels. If it's more towards your chest, it's a more vintage model. More modern suits have a gorge that's slightly higher up because a slightly higher up gorge tends to elevate the shoulders, while a gorge that's lower tends to elevate the chest. Now, next up, we have some smaller details that are maybe not as noticeable. For example, the buttons. Buttons can either be made out of plastic or of a higher quality material such as mother of pearl. If you have the option, I will always go for mother of pearl rather than plastic. It just shows that the suit is of a higher quality. The coat lining is also very important. It's a part of the suit that is almost never seen, but you also need to take the fabric into account. You see, most off-the-rack suits have polyester or synthetic linings. If you can go for a better fabric, I would definitely advise you to do so. When it comes to the construction of the suit, you have 3 main options. Full canvas, which is the highest quality, but also the most expensive. Half canvas, which I would recommend you to go for with most suits. Or fused, which is the cheapest, but also the least durable. Suits with a fused build will last far less time than a canvas suit. I would not recommend you to go for unconstructed suit jackets because they're much more casual than canvased ones. Now, when considering the pants, there are 4 main things that you should be keeping in mind. One of them is the rise. Yet again, you have 3 main options. You have low rise, mid, or high rise. I would recommend you to go for either mid or high waisted pants. Why? Because low rise pants simply don't look as good as the other options. Not only that, but they're also more casual. And that's because, traditionally speaking, suit pants were of a higher rise. Low-rise pants are a more modern invention and therefore more casual. Now, if we're talking about an off-the-rack suit, this is really not up to you. But if you're building your own suit, you should always pay attention to the way your pants are fastened. You have yet again 3 main options. You can either go for belt loops, which is the most casual one and the most modern, just like with the rise. You can also go for side adjusters, which is a much more fashionable choice, or you could go for suspender buttons. You can even combine them. I like to have both side adjusters and suspender buttons on my pants so that I can choose whichever method I like in that particular day. I would personally have both types of pants in my wardrobe. I would also have belt ones and I would also have side adjuster ones, but that's totally up to you. Now let's talk about the break of the pant, and that basically describes how long the pant is. You have full break, you have half break, or even quarter break, or you have no break at all. What a full break is, it means that there's a bit of material towards the bottom of your pant, whereas a no break means that the pant is in a very straight line and stops right at your shoes. The option you may choose to go for, again, depends entirely on you. But keep in mind that a full break is the more traditional choice, whereas a no break is more modern.